All right, now we're jumping into a brand new series today. Excited about this one. It's going to be next multiple weeks here. We'll have a conversation around this topic, but we're calling this the Survivor's Guide to a Digital Age. Okay, Survivor's Guide to a Digital Age. And so what we're going to be talking about here over the next bunch of weeks is kind of our relationship with technology. Our relationship with technology. And I want to put some caveats around that conversation a little bit so you know where we're going to go and where we're not going to go. So let me just kind of frame that in a little bit. So first of all, when we talk about a survivor's guide to the digital age, we're not going to talk about, we're not going to say, and we don't believe, that technology is evil and that you should never use it and get rid of it and never touch it again. Okay, so if that's where you're worried about, if you're concerned about that, don't worry about that. That's not where we're going to land. All right, that's not the case. You also should know that I am a pastor. I am not a technical expert in any way, right? If you talk to my staff, they're like, we have to help Ryan with everything. I'm like, how do you turn this TV on? I have no idea what's happening, right? So I am of no help whatsoever of figuring out what phone to get or what app to use. Zero help there, okay? So that's not going to be the nature of the conversation. We're not going to do that. I'm not going to be given technical advice. I'm also going to say this. What we're going to talk about in the course of our time is mostly centered around this device, right, the phone. There's lots of technology that we could talk about, and maybe you could apply more broadly. This is what we're actually going to be talking about, though, is mostly going to be our relationship with this device, which most of us have, right? And here's what we're going to be talking about, is how do we interact with it? And maybe the last thing I'll say before we begin to dive into it a little bit deeper, I'm not going to look at you today and say that I have this figured out. Okay? I cannot stand here and tell you that I have mastered utilizing this tool in a healthy way. What I would tell you is I am learning how to interact with this in a way that I'm proud of, and I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. In fact, this series is going to be deeply convicting, I think, to me. As we walk through it, even studying it, preparing for it, I'm like, oh man, this is going to be a beast to walk into. But I'm not looking at you as an expert, as somebody who has this mastered. I'm on the journey with you. The reality is, right, for the version of smartphone that most of us interact with, this thing is less than 10 years old. Okay, less than 10 years old. Just think about that for a minute. Right, if you have an iPhone or an Android, in the last 10 years, less than that, this thing's come out. It feels like it's been out forever. But we don't really know how to utilize it in a way that's going to be constructive, that we're going to be proud of, that helps us move in a great direction. And so we want to have some conversations around that because this thing is very, very impactful in our lives, and I think we know that, but we're gonna. I want after this series for us to definitely know that. When I hold this tool up, right, and you all look at it, most of us would look at that and be like, "That's no big deal. That's normal." We wouldn't even think twice about it. It's almost like an extension of your hand, right? You're like, "That thing, yeah, I got one, you got one, I got it in my pocket. It's right here." What we don't realize, right, is that this is a tool. And I'm not sure we always understand the gravity of what this tool is, right? We don't always understand kind of the reality and the power and the impact that this thing can have on us. I was trying to think of a parallel maybe that would make sense from a tool perspective that would maybe help us get our head around what we're actually dealing with, right? Because this tool is fun to use. It's fun to use. It's powerful, it's helpful, and it's extremely dangerous. It's extremely dangerous, right? When I thought about a tool that was like that, what came to mind was one of my personal favorites right here is this chainsaw. My brother-in-law gave me this. She's a beauty, isn't she? Some of you guys are out there and you're like, yes, I'm drooling right now. Others of you are troubled, right? Because you're like, I came to this church and he put a chainsaw on the table. I don't even know what to do right now, right? So here's the thing. This thing is fun to use. I love using chainsaws. It's one of my favorite things. It's very helpful and effective if you need to cut a tree up. It's like perfect. It's the perfect tool for that. It is so powerful, it's ridiculous, right? And it will cut your leg off, right? It is very, very dangerous. That is apparent to most of us, right? That's apparent to most of us. Most of us have enough common sense to realize when we look at this tool, we're like, if you don't know how to use it, you're like, I'm not just going to pick that up and start going to town. I probably should talk to somebody who knows what they're doing. Right? When I learned how to use a chainsaw, I talked to somebody who had been on a professional tree crew, and they taught me all kinds of stuff. They're like, wear these ear guards to protect your hearing. Wear these glasses to protect your eyes. You should probably wear pants, right? When you go, he taught me this, when you go, you should lock the bar and make sure it's not running every time you go to take a new step. I was like, that was a good one. Feels like I'm less likely if I fall to cut my face off if I do that, right? Those are good rules, just generally good tips. There's all kinds of safety precautions that come with this thing. Here's the thing. There's no safety precautions that really come with this thing. It kind of got thrown into society and into our lives, and here's what we found out really, really quick. Man, this thing's fun to use. Man, this thing's really helpful. Man, this thing is really powerful. And now we're figuring out, and it's kind of dangerous, right? So it's not evil. It's not evil. We're not demonizing it. Just like I wouldn't demonize my chainsaw. But I want to understand that I don't know how to use this well. I want to start by acknowledging reality, that this thing is more powerful than I realize. Because if 10 years ago, before these guys came out, if I said to you, hey, I'm going to give you a device, and that device is going to be simultaneously a bank and a casino and a strip club and all the libraries of the world and an arcade and blah, 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 all without anybody like really seeing it, although there's probably some footprint that I don't really understand. Right? But in general, you can go get to anywhere you want to go get to, all through this one. We call it a phone. It's more like a portal, right? This thing is like a portal that you can go to any land that you want to go to and explore there and get into enormous amounts of trouble. That's powerful. That's dangerous. Make sense? So what I've been looking for and trying to get my head around is how do I interact with this thing, because it is super helpful. It does have the Maps app. I can get directions immediately. Right? I can find my phone. I can use practical tools on this thing that are so unbelievably beneficial for my life. I don't want to just throw it away. How do I interact with this in a way that enhances my spiritual life, enhances my mental health, enhances my relationships instead of detracts from it, right? Because all of us have had interaction. We've all been impacted probably in all those areas. And maybe thought, maybe there's a problem here. I'm not even sure if I understand it all the way, right? Most of us have had some interaction with a person in our lives, and we were having a conversation with them, and we asked them a question, and this was their response. Nothing, right? And you're like, hey, I'm right here. Hello. We've all had that experience, and if you haven't had the experience, you're the one doing that, right? But that's the reality, is this is affecting us in real ways. It can be used for great good. We want to make sure we understand what that good could look like, and we want to understand the dangers of it. Now, the dangers of this tool, as opposed to the chainsaw, the dangers for the chainsaw are mostly physical dangers. We understand those more easily. The hard part about this tool is that the dangers that come with this one are often unseen. They're impacts to our mind, or they're impacts to our emotions, or they're impacts to our spirit, right? Things like my ability to focus for a long time. That my level of anxiety or depression, those two words have skyrocketed in the last 10 years, and we have to ask the question, what's going on there, right? My ability to connect with other people, all that stuff. So here's where we're going to go. We're going to look at those interactions, the dangers, the opportunities, the realities, and we're going to have conversations around what are maybe some boundaries or some safety precautions that I might put into place so that this thing can serve me and not me serve it. This can be a tool, not a master in my life. And so I can walk away and say, okay, I want to try to have a little bit more of a grip on it. Now, we're going to look at a verse in a minute to begin to frame this conversation. Again, this is just an introductory conversation today. But this verse we're going to look at acknowledges and assumes that you and I understand that the world that we live in, that we are in what the Bible is going to call a spiritual battle or a spiritual war. And that war is not a physical one. We're going to see that in a minute. It's one where it's assumed that there's a war for your heart and my heart, for your mind and my mind, and that there are forces of evil that would like for your heart and my heart and our minds to be somewhere and headed in a direction, and that the God of the universe is fighting to free our hearts and our minds from any kind of influence or captivity that we might be in that spiritual battle. We'll talk more about how all that works. Here's the verse, though, in 2 Corinthians chapter 10, and here's what the Apostle Paul says in 4 and 5. He says, the weapons that we fight with are not the weapons of the world. He says, on the contrary, they have divine power to demolish strongholds. We demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God, and we take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ. Let me give you a little bit of background here as we dive in, and then we'll unpack it a little bit more. What Paul assumed that the people of Corinth, the people he's writing to, he assumed they knew that we may not know, is these people would have understood the Roman Empire and how the Roman Empire approached war. Okay, they would have been kind of the war machine of the time, and they were able to take people over and attack and take over areas, and they did it very, very, very successfully. Paul's going to say, we don't fight in physical ways, kind of like the Roman Empire does. Our battles are going to be spiritual, but they're going to be powerful, even more powerful than the Roman Empires. And so he would talk about things like tearing down strongholds. And here's the idea, which you can imagine, is in the ancient world, the Roman Empire, they would have to come up against cities, and those cities would be protected by these big walls. And what they would do is they would try to tear down those walls, tear down those strongholds, and they would use weapons like battering rams and catapults. They would shoot at people with arrows, right? We're not talking in the era of guns and bombs yet, right? This is before all of that. And the weapons of their warfare is they would destroy these areas to get in and to capture the people and to advance in their mission. The other piece he talks about is taking captives. The Roman Empire would have, what they would have done is that they would have taken captive prisoners, and some of those prisoners, they would put them at the end of what they called this procession. They called it a triumphal procession, where they would go through in a big parade, and this big parade would declare how awesome Rome was. And at the very end of that would be a bunch of captives, and those captives would be seen as prisoners, and they'd be paraded through the streets, and everybody would know that the Roman Empire had taken those people captive. What Paul is saying is this. He's saying, you and I, there are strongholds in our minds, and there are strongholds in our lives, and those strongholds are ways that the enemy tries to bind us into lies, into believing things that aren't true. There are strongholds, and there are areas where we get entrapped and enslaved in life. Most of us have experienced something like this, where you get caught in a cycle of doing stuff you don't want to do. I do. I've got tons of those, right? And there's this huge piece of how I came to know Jesus. I had so many of them. I'm like, how could I get out of this? The Bible's going to say, we don't see those strongholds. They're not visible, but they exist. And they show up like addictions, or they show up like problems that we can't solve on our own, interpersonal problems, or stuff that we're doing that we don't want to be doing. And what he would say is, the Bible has divine weapons to blow those strongholds up, to break through those, to free God's people. Right? Jesus would say that you'll know the truth and the truth will set you free. He also talks about taking thoughts captive, and the idea is that followers of Jesus have the ability to grab hold of these thoughts that are against God, to wrestle them down, to put them at the end of the parade, so to say, and say, nope, this one I'm going to grab hold of and make it obedient to Jesus. That's the idea. He's like, this is how we fight. We fight in the realm of ideas and prayers and spiritual weapons. We'll talk more about that throughout the series. But here's part of the reality of this that I want you to understand, because this is true with or without this device, okay? This is true with or without this device. Let me give you an example. We'll just play with one, pick one kind of out of a hat. Here's the idea. If you might say, you know what, I have a propensity for gambling. I'm just going to pick on that one for no reason whatsoever. But right, let's say you said, you know what, that's the worst sticker figure I've ever drawn. That's awful. If you said, hey, I think I want to gamble, and you had that idea in 1999, you're like, some of you were like, I wasn't born then, maybe a few years after. Okay, here's the idea. What you would have to do pre-smartphone is you would have to be like, where might somebody go to gamble? And then you'd have to figure out where you have to go gamble. And you'd have to find a casino or a horse track or wherever else gambling happens that I don't know about, right? And you'd have to physically go there. And you'd have to not get caught, right? If you didn't want other people to know. And you'd have to make a time and a place when it was open, and you'd have to go be there, right? And you might say, whew, I did that, and I like that, and I'm going to make another time sometime in the future when I can do that same thing, and hopefully I go through all those steps and don't get caught, or it isn't known, my spouse doesn't find out, or my mom doesn't know, and you might have to go through all that to go gamble. Today, all the friction is removed from those actions. So you might have a thought and say, you know what, I feel like gambling, and now you don't have to go to a place, and you don't have to really risk being caught, right? Nobody's going to find out. You can go make that action happen way faster than you could have before with way less friction. There's nothing stopping you or getting in your way, like a time and a place or people watching. You can do it from your bedroom multiple times in a row. And what happens is, this is why this is such a big deal, is this thing that would have taken a little bit longer for this stronghold to take root in my life or in my heart or in my mind, now can happen really, 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 really fast. Right? Now it can happen almost immediately, in this stronghold where I'm boxed and enslaved in, can start to form really, really, really quickly. If you wanted to go find pornography 25 years ago, you had to go find a video or a magazine or whatever. If you wanted, let's put it on a different shelf, right? If you wanted to go covet or envy somebody's something, maybe it's a car or a house, you might have to drive by or get a magazine to go look at those kinds of things, and you spend some time looking at that and getting excited about it. Now, you can go and get involved as much as you want, as fast as you want, with nobody really knowing about it. And take that and plug in whatever your thing is, whether that's stalking your ex or doing, right? I don't know what your weird thing is, right? Like, whatever the thing is that you end up doing that nobody knows about, you can do it kind of all the time, and we just kind of don't talk about it. Well, the Bible would say, hey, man, this thing's kind of a big deal because it's forming like a thing in your heart and your mind. And not only that, here's just a layer to it. The algorithm, right? So how it's set up is when you go to take an action on that thing, it's not like you have to just go get it. It's going to bring it to you. You search for it. It's not just like, now I got to go search for it again. Now you have to say no to the thing that you search for because now it's coming to your lap. It's on your screen. I just want us to feel the reality of what's happening here. This can happen for good. If you look up Jesus and the Bible Project, and all that's true and real, we're going to talk about that. And the problem is, I'm a fallen person with a sin nature. So even if I looked at the Bible 100 times, 99 times out of 100, the one time that I kind of gave in to that one thing I want to look up, now it's going to be offered back to me, and now that's going to start to move and get traction because of my human weakness. So all of this is reality. What Paul would say is, these strongholds exist and have existed since before any of the technology we're talking about, and there are divine weapons that can help to blow these things up. They blow through these barriers that we tend to create, and they make access to God possible. But I've got to know that I'm in this thing, and I've got to access these weapons and use them to gain freedom from some of how I'm being impacted, right? And as we mentioned, part of the reason it's hard to talk about this is it's invisible. Most of it's going on in my head, right? It's like in my head and in my heart. And so the question then ends up being, what is going on in here? Do I know how I'm being impacted from a heart level and from a head level? The Bible encourages me to use my head and my heart in all kinds of different ways. I just gave you some quick examples, right? So I just looked up how many times does the Bible use the word mind? 120 times. How about the word remember, which is active use of my mind to reflect? 130 times. Think, 601 times. Consider, 37 times. Right? We can go on and on. I just looked up 4, right? Those are 4 words. The point is, if I'm a follower of Jesus, what I am responsible to do is I'm responsible to know what's going on in here. And I'm responsible to recognize when I'm beginning to get trapped in here. Even if you can't see it, and even if nobody else knows about it, part of what I need is I need a wake-up call. I need my attention to kind of surface so that I can see, man, wait a minute, this thing is starting to get a hold of me way more than I realize. I need my awareness to go up, and I need my attention to be awakened so that I start to see what's actually happening. And here's the reason why. Right, I put it in the notes this way. Our attention directs our thoughts, and our thoughts direct our lives. Okay? Our attention directs our thoughts, and our thoughts direct our lives. There's an entire, you guys just need to hear this, okay? It's just reality. I'm not even saying it's evil. I'm just saying it's reality. There's an entire economy built on getting your attention. To whatever is possible to get your eyeballs to look at the product or the service or the thing that I am trying to sell to. It's a whole ecosystem of effort and money that's going into that. I'm not even making a judgment about that in this conversation. I'm saying that is something that I need to know about. Because here's the thing. Are you ready? This is really important. I don't care how much you believe in God. God is never going to supersede your will in choosing what's going on in your head and where your attention is going. You and I are in charge of that. I decide where my attention goes. So nobody's going to come, well, I can't look and say, well, the phone is evil. It did this to me. Stop. The marketers did it to me. They set the algorithm. I just couldn't help it. Right? I mean, I can't land there because God has made me in his image. He has given me a mind and a will to choose and decisions to make. So here's the thing. I've got to say, wait a minute. This thing is sucking up, this thing is sucking up way more than I thought in this area. I got to grab hold of that, recognize it, and say, wait a minute, I'm going to utilize some divine weapons to break me out of that so that I can see it. Is God involved in that? Absolutely. But he's the one who gave us the weapons, and he's the one who told us we got to use them. Those weapons are weapons like prayer. Like and I don't understand why they're so powerful. They just are. There's something powerful. There's something powerful about somebody looking and saying, I am choosing to follow Jesus. And when you say that out loud, there's something powerful about that. You're like, Ryan, that doesn't make sense, man. You're just saying some words. I don't know how to explain it. All I know is when you confess truth, I need help. I believe in Jesus. I need him to save me. There's something powerful about that. There's something powerful about watching somebody look and say, I'm going to go and I'm going to get baptized, because in that statement, what I'm saying is, I am all in on Jesus. He and I are together. I'm not going to worship any other God. He is the one that's worthy of my attention and my heart and my mind and my focus. In anything, that I want everything that is in me to go in that direction. Right? That doesn't mean that we don't use a tool or do normal every day. Jesus can be a part of all that, but I'm not going to allow myself to brainlessly get sucked in to where now I'm losing time and I'm losing days and months and years, and they're ripping by and they're flying, and because I've been in some kind of a zombie-like state, scrolling, because I don't want to feel the pain of distraction, and I kind of want to just numb stuff, and so I'm just gonna. I don't. It's not even a conscious decision. I get kind of sucked into it, and now time has passed. My youngest, I've got 4 kids. My youngest is going to turn 13 this week. I remember when my oldest turned 13, 5 years ago. And I stood in the backyard last night, and I was like, that's 5 years, man. That went quick. And you hit these moments where there's, in the grace of God, I think we're experiencing one right now in our culture. There's a wake-up call. And God gives you a gift of it. And sometimes they come in unexpected ways, but there's a gift of saying, hey, wake up. You're sleeping. You let go of the wheel. Lock back in and figure out where you're headed. You're losing time. You're made for more than this. And in the grace of God, sometimes He'll get our attention and He'll wake us up, and there's a moment. Sometimes it's through a tragedy. Sometimes it's through a point of reflection. Sometimes it's just saying, wait, I don't want to be like this anymore. And He looks and says, He invites us to say, come out of there. You're not made for that. You're not made for captivity. You're not a slave. I set you free. I came to the planet. I lived a perfect life. I died an innocent death. I rose from the dead to give you life. What are you doing? Playing Candy Crush. Nothing wrong with the video game. You get the point. Guys, it's happening. It's happening. And I want to, when the end of my days come, a friend of mine just said this to me. You get a close call, and you start to ask the question, and if I saw Jesus today, if today was the day, just put yourself in that space. Ryan, I don't want to, it's morbid. Do it. Do it. The scriptures say it's better to be in the house of mourning than the house of feasting. Be uncomfortable for 35 seconds. If today was the day, are you ready? Am I ready? Or when I look and say, dude, I wasted it. I wasted big chunks of time, and I wish I could make that different. I wish I could make that better for you, Christ. Man, I feel responsible to make sure we can get as close as we can sometimes to that moment to realize time is happening, and that day that I just described that feels a little bit too uncomfortable, that day is coming for all of us. It might be in a month, it might be in 50 years, and only God knows. But I'm not going to live forever, and you're not going to live forever. Not in this body, not on this earth, but I can live forever eternally with Jesus, and this is my one shot to do this time. It's all I got. It's all you have. Part of what I hope is that this series is a gift that creates a wake-up call. To say, where am I right now? And am I headed into the direction that I really want to be going? Or did I just kind of fall asleep and zone out and scroll out? And now I feel kind of trapped in here. Paul's going to say this in Ephesians 4. He says, so I tell you this. Listen to what he says. He says, I insist on it in the Lord that you must no longer live as the Gentiles do, in the futility of their thinking. They're darkened in their understanding and separated from the life of God because of the ignorance that is in them due to the hardening of their hearts. Paul's saying this. He's saying, don't be like people that don't know God, that haven't had a relationship with Jesus. And listen, I would look at you and say, I lived almost half my life in darkness. Straight up dark. Like, I just didn't, and when I mean darkness, I don't just mean evil. I mean, I didn't know what was true. I didn't know where to go find truth. When somebody asked me a question like, hey man, are you going to get married? I would say, I don't know if I believe in marriage. I've never seen it work. I was just in darkness. He's saying, why are you, the person who has the light, why are you thinking like somebody who is living in the darkness? Why are you adopting darkness thinking that has nothing to do with the truth and the reality that we find in the scriptures? Why are you embracing that uselessness, that futility of thinking? I insist on it in the Lord, he would say, because he knows where it leads, right? It leads to me being trapped here. When the door has been blown off, the stronghold has been torn down, I'm free. I'm free to leave. The captivity and the habits and the sin and the ugly that I've experienced when I was in darkness. You say, Ryan, what do we do with all this? Here's a couple of things. I think we have a couple options. First, I want to say, here's what I think we can do this week as we go through the week, and then we'll talk about today, okay? Here's what I'd love to have you do this week. This week, I would love for us just to grow in our awareness of how we're maybe being affected here. Would you maybe even start to do a little bit of an audit and start to experiment with some space, right? Like, I'm going to maybe go an hour or 2 hours or 5 hours or maybe a day. Some of you are like, I'm already twitching, right? Like, I need it. But whatever it is, to try to experience, and then take note, how do you feel when you do that? When you take a little break? What do you miss? Are you better? What's your level of peace feel like? How are you using it? Are you on purpose choosing to see or to look at the things that you're looking at as often as you are? Right? Where you might look and say, man, I had no idea I had that many hours in that. I want to just raise awareness. Experiment. Try it. Okay, that's for this week. Next week, we'll take it to the next level. Today, here's the thing today, okay? In a minute, we're going to have the band come out. And here's really where I think we should land today. I I'd love to see us land in a place, the band's going to give us some quiet, some stillness. I would love for us in that time to just be quiet before the Lord. Give him some space to speak to us. And maybe in that quiet, maybe you're here today and you would say, you know what, like I know that there's no reason for me to not move forward in my faith in Jesus. I know I need to take that step. I'm ready to do it right now. Some of you might be here and you're ready to do that. You would look and say, I look at what Jesus did and I believe in him and I'm all in and I can't wait another day. I've got to make the decision now. And that's where you are. Rip the Band-Aid, do it. Say yes to Christ. Look at his sacrifice for your sin. Look to him. Pray to him quietly between just you and him and say, Jesus, thank you for giving your life to pay for mine. I want to follow you. I'll look to your words to direct and define my life. I'm in. I'm in. I'm sorry for what I've done. I'm in. Some of us in that quiet, maybe you just take stock of where you are. And maybe you answer the question, has some of this started to build up in me? Do I have areas that this has had a bigger impact on me than I thought? Some of you might even look and say, man, I need to make my faith public. Can I get baptized today? And if some of you are there, we'll walk with you. We'll baptize you today if you want. Zero pressure. It's you and Jesus. What do you want to do? Where do you want to go? Do you want to respond to the invitation from a loving Savior to take hold of life that is really life? That's the offer on the table. So you move towards, and I will move towards the parts that we're being called to move on. Would you bow your heads and close your eyes with me? Father, today, just aware again of how enormous and overwhelming your grace is for our lives. Lord, we fail you. I fail you, God, over and over again. And yet you are eager to forgive. You are longing to set free. Jesus, you already paid the price. God, would you give us the courage to just grab hold of what you're offering? Your love and your forgiveness in a way that sets free rather than enslaves. God, would you speak to each and every individual heart here today? Call us into the love and into the light that is only yours. Would you meet us here, Lord, even now?